Hello, everyone. Hello, and welcome to Work to Game. This is the Crystal Core Radio Podcast. Joining me, we have Elio back on the show again. Gaming Kinda is here as well with a whole new look for their office and setup, which is just going to be a journey that we're going to follow through 2024 with. It's a great year, and today I want to talk to you about release dates. I want to get into some lore talk, especially kind of picking up from our last show as well. And but before we do that, the one question I did want to ask you, Elio, last week was like, yes, Dawn Trail is coming out this year, but is there any other video games that are just like on your radar that you're particularly excited about? Because it's going to be a big year. I feel like there's a lot of unknowns where 2023, I think, completely dominated. But what do you think?
Yeah, so I feel like the three that come to mind, I mean, since we're talking about Final Fantasy, Rebirth coming out, I mean, is very exciting. I was never as big of a Final Fantasy VII head, but I definitely am excited to see where they go, especially how they left off after Remake.
Don't tell me, because I haven't played Remake yet. I just finished Final Fantasy 16. Oh wow, like I can't wait to hear Chris's thoughts on it, and we'll have to talk about it when after the PC version comes out, so more people can play it. But I'm looking to dive into Final Fantasy VII Remake. But I have a follow-up. Okay, so you were in a 7 head. I wasn't either. Yeah. Like I love 7, but I think there's a better one out there. What head would you be?
I mean, it might be born 10. I'm a huge,
you and Chris.
I almost wore today my sweater that is just it's Titus doing the laugh, but instead of ha ha ha, it's saying ho ho ho, and it's got like a Christmas hat on it. I adore 10, and that's one of those, like, you know how you have like a book or something you come back to every so often in your life and like take something different away from. 10 is one of those games for me for sure.
Of course, the lore guys there's like a book that you just keep returning to time and time again. Like surprise, shocker.
Yeah.
Chris, go ahead. Yeah, please. No. It was literally, I didn't know if you had some more thoughts, Dad.
I mean, the other two are Dragon's Dogma, which I know a lot of people are excited about, and then the Silent Hill 2 remake, which is either going to be a trash fire or really good, and we'll see.
It's Konami now. Like who knows what they're doing? They're up to some no good. Chris, you got any games that are on your actual radar?
No, I wait till they come out. I'm excited to play more WoW this year. I'm excited to play more 14 this year. So those are the only two that I'm committed to. I've been watching some Guild Wars lately.
Nice.
Dude, Guild Wars is always so good. It's such
continuously kind of draws me in.
Yeah.
I don't know why it doesn't keep me, because I like everything about it. And actually, a lot of times when I go back to other games, I find myself saying, why aren't they doing this like Guild Wars is doing it? Like Guild Wars is doing this way better. And so a lot of times, like my biggest criticism of other games, not even just MMOs, is like, they should do this like Guild Wars does it. So I think Guild Wars is definitely the strong one in the room.
Right. My big MMO before 14 was Guild Wars. I had played it from like alpha. No. Sorry. Open beta to launch or up to Path of Fire. I fell off because of lore and story problems. Surprising no one, but like mechanically Guild Wars 2 does so many things well. And totally agree.
From a storytelling standpoint, it is different than other MMOs. So when we talk about something like Baldur's Gate, where you have a solo experience, or Final Fantasy VII, where it can be like rewritten because it's being released, like the story can surprise you. But in an MMO, it's usually pretty forced, because we've all agreed that we're in this theme park together, and so the tram has to start and stop at the same stops for everybody, because when we all get off the stop, we all have to be at the ride together. So if there's a raid that has to turn into a boss, we all need that villain or that ally to turn into a boss fight at the exact same time in the exact same way, so that we can party up in a group of 8 or whatever and take it on. Guild Wars actually has branches within its story, things that address uniquely your character based on your character's choice of race or gender, and things that like choices you make. And like, imagine like based on kind of in Final Fantasy terms, things like your grand company, and they can change the scenarios you have access to. And like 14's kind of tried it a couple times, and WoW's kind of tried it, especially with like their factions having different takes on raids. But ultimately, like Guild Wars does it the most. Why do you guys think that other MMOs don't?
Star Wars: The Old Republic is the only one that I think goes a little further. Because
you think? Can you explain that?
Yeah, so Star Wars: The Old Republic is, if you've ever played, I mean, it's early BioWare, right? So think Mass Effect, right? If you had Mass Effect but designed as an MMO, that is what The Old Republic basically is. And that's why some people jokingly refer to it as like the unofficial Knights of the Old Republic 3, because it is really in a lot of ways a MMO veneer and like mechanic, like social aspects mechanics, but with basically you playing a BioWare RPG.
Interesting. I think it's somebody that's like, I've basically played like kind of the top 40 equivalent of MMOs. Like I tend to stick to the ones that have the population behind them.
Yeah.
You know, so over my time in full time, like people kind of slowly helped me dive my feet a little bit wider and further than my friend group had kind of dragged me into. I found that really shocking in Guild Wars, that like I made a choice and that literally just took me left. And then, you know, so like imagine we have to take out a power plant. And so one of us is going to have to take out the ceruleum tanks and the other's going to have to take out the engineering bay. You would literally make a choice, and that's the only one you would see. And if you want to see the other one, you have to go back and play through it the other way. Now, if at the end the power plant has to explode, then what's going to happen is we're going to have NPC allies that achieve the other mission. So there's still a little bit of flatness.
If you like that, you should definitely check out The Old Republic, because it does that way more than I would say Guild Wars 2 does. And the thing that's a little sad is Guild Wars 2 did it more at launch. I think one of Guild Wars 2's biggest issue for like people who don't just like touch in or who are like longtime players is that it's one of the MMOs that where it is the most it's very easy to see different people are making this game at different points in time. Different writers are writing it, different developers are developing. Like you can really sense that if you play it for a long period of time.
Yeah, their ARR equivalent, their first one really experimented with storytelling a lot. And they got away from that in the more recent expansions. But that's not wildly different than like when I watched somebody play Final Fantasy 14 for the first time. We're about to have a whole lot of fresh time. Final Fantasy fans come in, and you're going to hear things like, I love how like the weather matters. I love these like guild hests. Like I love how like my chocobo is helping me in the world. And like salty veterans are going to say like,
don't get too attached.
Don't have fun, child. Like, because that's going to be taken away. Like,
I mean, it's funny. Just the other day, I was leveling an alt and using my chocobo. So I do think as much as that systems aren't important or supported later on, it's not that it's fully dead. Unlike Squadrons. Squadrons is definitely fully dead.
Honestly, I think, no, like, you have to. Don't you? No.
Oh, okay. No, that's right. You're not wrong.
Emotes. If you want to do push-ups or squats, don't like it's push-ups, squats, and is it just those two? Those are the two emotes locked behind Squadrons.
I think so. That sounds right.
Yeah. So to answer my own question, but that was actually interesting. I was gonna say, Chris, like if we want to like set some time up, maybe in April to jump into Knights of the Old Republic, like the MMO, I'll happily go and play with you. I played it at launch, and you know, it was something I picked up and put down, but it's, you know, it's been out for a while. It's still there, and honestly, I don't feel like I have like any level of like expertise on that. So that might be interesting just to have that as just a like, yeah, this is how they did it and did it differently. So anyway, like April probably be my earliest convenience to be able to like get time to actually dive into that. But anyway, open offer if anybody else wants to join in. Maybe we'll do some Star Wars stuff, which would be kind of fun. I was gonna say Dragon Quest 3 remake. I'm really hoping it comes out this year. Like if we look forward to the year, we don't truly know what's coming out, but that's the one game that I'm just hoping that they would talk about last year because they announced it. And now we're left waiting. So I'm hoping that that's a 2024 release personally. Did any of you guys catch the Xbox Direct yesterday? Because I was curious to see if you have any games from that you're interested in.
I didn't catch all of it. I did check out the Indiana Jones because of, ironically, not actually so much because of Indiana Jones, but because of, I'm forgetting the development team. But I really loved
Machine Games.
Machine Games, because I really loved New Colossus and New Order.
Yeah. Chris, how about you? Did you get to check out any of those news?
I did not. I've had some YouTube on while I've been reorganizing my office here in the background, and the number one recommended video is developer reacts to developer something. And I'm like, no, I'm trying to like listen to something that I don't need to watch. So I'm like listening to people talk about, I don't know, whatever, all sorts of stuff.
So the big excitement for me is that they had like, here's what we're announcing, and then of course Square Enix came in with the surprise announcement of Visions of Mana. Now I love the Mana series. I going all the way back, been played through Trials of Mana on the Switch with Maddie when she was a little bit younger, and so this is that next chapter, and it looks gorgeous. So they announced that Xbox isn't getting excluded, which like it's not coming to Game Pass, so there was nothing really magical about like it's not like and it's coming into Game Pass. For me, I don't care because I'm absolutely going to buy this game because I'm a nerd. But it was exciting to see that. But then there was no Final Fantasy VII R announcement. And Final Fantasy 14, to kind of bring this home, is that like the day before, Xbox tweeted out, "Welcome Final Fantasy 14, download the beta today," and delete. So I think that continues to confirm we're looking at a February launch for the Xbox beta. But I just thought it was like, okay, like what are we going to announce? What does this mean? And I hope this means more improvement of relationships so Square Enix can get their games out to everybody, and then they could stop having press announcements saying this game didn't meet expectations. It's like, put it everywhere, just let people play it, and let's go. But that's a highlight for me that I'm looking forward to. No multiplayer for that, which I still feel like that's one thing I wish they were able to capture from the SNES, because that was something that was truly, I think, special about that version. But that is what it is. All right. That's what I want to kind of bring up. I want to take a kind of a mini show note pivot to say thank you to T Archivist, dropping 5 gifted subs over on Twitch. Thank you guys for the likes here already on this stream. And if you're watching this as a VOD, as soon as YouTube finishes processing this, we'll have this video chaptered out for you. So hopefully, whether you want to dip in, dip out, and come back where there's a topic, just check the chapters below. I don't know what time that is going to be. And also the top link, if you want to subscribe to the audio version of the podcast and enjoy that, however you enjoy podcasts, there you go. All right. Those are the plugs. I'm going to turn it over to you guys because I need to take a breath because I'm sick. So, Chris, take over for a second.
So this week, obviously, with patch 5.55 having come out and Final Fantasy 14 kind of entering its last leg before the next expansion, how are you feeling, Elio? Do you think there's enough content left on the bone, or how far out do you think the patch could last you?
So the patch itself, obviously not that long. Like effectively, I've already finished everything from the patch, but that was always to be expected. The 0.55 is always short. It's always like this. So unless people are brand new and weren't looking into it and we're expecting 5.5 to be a huge, like it's not patch 6.6, right? There's a reason it's not patch 6.6. But what I do think is that between the content that we've gotten over this patch cycle mixed in with all the other backlog things that there are to do, this 6.55 got me super excited for Dawn Trail in its own right. It just felt like pulled me into being excited to go to Tural. And on top of that, there's just so much stuff to do in this game. And I'm looking forward to being actually all caught up on this character because Elio was a new character I made for doing the MSQ, and I'm really, really excited to go get a solo clear of Heaven on High, get Necromancer, get finish Island Sanctuary. There's just so that's where I'm at right now.
Awesome. Brian, I know is waiting on the weight loss journey there to come
getting
back.
Close.
We'll
just
download
tweet it
the
out
Xbox
today. A new
update.
Just
try it. What does a trial look like to you for Xbox, since you're gonna like dip your toe in and then immediately leave? What do you expect to get done when you're trying it out?
I'm really worried I'm gonna get that addiction back, because it's been, what has it been, at least like 15 16 months away, and I'm really worried that's gonna and that's gonna be the hardest part, waiting till the weight loss is complete, because I just announced today I'm actually officially now down 60 pounds, so that puts me within real striking distance of the weight that I was when I met Julie back in the day. And on top of that, that puts me within 50 pounds before I can officially, return to Final Fantasy 14 and having achieved my goals. It's happening. I just don't know when. And that's going to be, I guess, a part of our discussion for how we feeling with the release date. Because right now I'm averaging about 5 to 8 pound loss per month, which is great. as I hit the mic. But yeah, so Xbox February I think is perfect, and then it rolls into the game. So my honest to goodness thought I'm thinking of, and you guys can hold me accountable to if you think I'm violating my own principles here, is that I'm actually was thinking about refreshing the Paladin controller guide, because since I left, they made a lot of changes to Paladin, and I like Paladin. And I was like, with the rotation and buttons and things like that. And I was thinking about working on that. And then somebody was asking me, like, am I ever going to finish that the remaining guides for like Dragoon and Monk? And it's like, oh, I don't know if I could do that, because like that's where I was getting. I'm not a melee guy. Like that's when they announced Viper. Happy for people who like that. I don't think I'm going to go back. Like when I look at playing Final Fantasy 14 again, it isn't going to be about, Omni, 100. It's going to be about Omni. Here's the jobs that I actually really enjoy spending time on. And then the rest of them can sit off on the side, or I can start getting my kids to do grinding for me, so I could just forget about it. That's right, man. They got free room and board. It's time for them to start putting in.
Who needs bots when you've got kids?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, the nice thing I will say too is, like, if you want to get things Omni 100, but you never want to have to play a job, just go do like your daily frontline roulette. You get a whole bunch of XP. You don't even have to play on the job to get the XP. You just load in with whatever job you want to. Immediately switch.
Turn in your book.
Yep. Return in your book.
Yep.
Do Pixie tribe quests or what have you.
Those would actually require you to press a handful of buttons, but everything else you've described, you could literally do nothing on the job. Yeah,
I will say,
you turn in the book on a job, the job doesn't have to press a single combat button. And PvP roulettes, you can change jobs once you're inside. And so you never have to play the job. The experience goes back on the job you queued as.
I will say, too, definitely don't do a Dragoon controller guide right now, because it's going to get a whole reworked in 7.0.
Yeah, and that's where it's just like how there's a beautiful side to content creation, but you guys, we talked about it last week. It's just like, y'all know me, like I'm ridiculous. And so I kind of just get in the zone and focus in on it. And then I look up and I'm like, man, I'm really tired. I'm really, fatigued by this. So I want to make sure I try to have that healthy balance of like, cause like, I see Mysterio, where's my Pictomancer Dragon Song guide? Yeah, I probably will, like whenever, and I won't be, again, if I have not hit my goals, I'm not playing Dawn Trail. I want to make sure that weight is under control this time around. But yeah, like, I'll come back. I'll make a Picto. Yeah. It's weird because like back when they first announced Dawn Trail, like I was like, why does it feel like they're like, come back to the game, Brian? Like every announcement, we're going to bring another kind of magic class. Oh, and did you say Xbox? Welcome in. It's like, well, all right. They sent me a Christmas card. Okay, fine. Like, all right.
They definitely did data analytic research, and like you were just like one of their main criteria for figuring out what to reference.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm honestly very, very pleased about it. We got a special guest joining us, Chili. If you guys don't follow Chili over Moogle Going Round Radio, he jumped into the fray here. Welcome to the show, man. What's up, dude?
Hello. Not much. By the way, talk about doing a Dragoon guide. I would suggest waiting until Dawn Trail, even if you were going to make it, because Dragoon's getting a full rework with Dawn Trail.
Same thinking. That's exactly what I was just saying. Yep.
All right, you guys heard it here first.
Do both.
Yeah, YouTube algorithm says do.
YouTube algorithm says
I'm no longer better. I'm no longer slave to the YouTube algorithm. I can do what I want. I'm a free man. So I'm excited about that. So what's else going on with you, Chili? We asked about kind of upcoming games. Like, is there anything? I know that you and I are both excited about Grand Blue Fantasy Relink.
Yeah, I'm hyped for Grand Blue Fantasy Relink. Foam Stars. I actually really enjoyed the beta for that, so I am going to be playing that, and it's free on PlayStation Plus. So, so there's that. I'll probably be picking that up. Apart from that, of course, Rebirth at the end of the month with Fantasy 7 Rebirth. I'm excited for that.
So I got a question about 7 Rebirth, because now that I beat Final Fantasy 16, I'm wanting to play 7R, and like I should I jump into that like this week pre Grand Blue Fantasy, or should I just wait till like February to kind of fire that up? What do you guys think?
It's pretty chunky. I might wait.
Oh, okay. Chunky. Yeah, because I was like, I don't want to start it and then get addicted to the Grand Blue, for like, a month, and then it's like, oh wait, I want to try and actually have some kind of discipline when it comes to playing video games.
From what I've heard, if you're just doing the story of Grand Blue, it should only be about 20 hours for the story. The main story is 20 hours from what I heard. And then there's a story after that, which is another 20 hours, but that's an additional story. And then anything else after that is just quests like Monster Hunter. So it goes into more like a Monster Hunter quest system after the main story, where you can then just grind for gear and power.
The kid in me like would hear 20 hours for like an RPG and be like, this sucks. Like, where's my 60-hour RPG? The adult in me goes, yes, that sounds 20 hours. I can make that happen. 60 hours. I'm like, I don't know. Like, that's kind of that's a commitment. Like, what kind of franchise are we talking about?
What I'll say for 7 is I would not recommend playing 7 in like play half of it, then play Grand Blue, then, because especially Remake has some things about it that you're going to want to remember earlier details. Okay. I'll just say that. And so if you have like 30 hours you think you can give to it before Grand Blue, go for it. Otherwise, maybe wait.
And here we are at the kind of coming up at the back half of January, and I just don't see that happening. I think Grand Blue is going to come in. Now, the question I still have unanswered for Grand Blue is, on PC, it's wish listed. The only way you can pre-order the game right now is on PlayStation with early access. So PlayStation might get the win. I'm just kind of holding off to see if it opens up on PC.
I mean, I'm hoping it comes out on PlayStation for you first, because that way we can at least do crossplay in the future.
Oh, well, yeah, we can. It isn't crossplay though with PC.
No, it's not crossplay.
But you're picking it up on PlayStation.
I'm picking up PlayStation.
I'll just get it on PlayStation. There we go. Problem solved.
Boom, solved.
Solve that problem. I'll pre-order that today. Good. All right. I'm glad we had this little powwow publicly.
It is only. I know this will sound weird, but it is crossplay, but only in the PlayStation ecosystem. Like, because
PS4 to PS5. Yeah.
The future's wild.
Sony likes fun.
As long as it's their fun.
As long as it's their fun.
Yeah.
You can have a lot of fun in their garden. All right. Well, what else was in the show notes, Brian?
So I want to go
prediction dates for Dawn Trail.
Prediction dates, yeah.
We haven't done that yet.
Well, especially because now that we are, I think it's confidently that the Xbox version is February, unless something else goes wrong.
February 21st.
Yeah, that's what I would say.
At
February
the earliest.
21st. At the earliest. But if they don't hit that date, in my mind, the release date keeps getting kicked out. And Chris has the epic spreadsheet of nerdiness. And I don't know, with the new patch that just dropped, like, has that shifted any of your expected dates, Chris? Why don't you just, for anybody who's not caught that in the previous shows, where do you fall right now?
Actually, we're exactly as predicted. 6.55 landed exactly when I thought it would. I predicted 658 for end of the month. I thought Xbox would be ready like within a week of that. So the Xbox version seems to be the one thing that I really don't have correct.
I wonder if they wanted it.
It was set. They were shooting for January 16th. Like, that was their. And that's where, like, for me, like, this delay, and it's not an official delay. They didn't come out and say it's the 16th, but especially with the Xbox tweet, like, that was clearly scheduled. This was the plan they were targeting. They said mid-January was their original goal. But moving it by a month makes me, in my mind, also move Dawn Trail by at least that same amount.
Makes me wonder if it was QA, kind of like what happened with Endwalker with
possible.
I would think that would be the thing that would push it.
I mean, it could either be QA or it could just be something simple as, like, they've submitted the patch stuff to Microsoft and it's taken longer for Microsoft to respond than they expected.
Yeah.
It's absolutely possible. That's the one thing that I really am happy that MMOs are on consoles, and we're seeing more of that. I think we're going to see New World come to console. We're going to see, obviously, Throne of Liberty and Blue Protocol on console. But I think that is the one and only downside that I can agree with gamers who are like, I don't want my MMOs on consoles. Is like, yeah, there is an extra layer, but I think it opens up enough people to play that it offsets any kind of cost.
Agreed.
It's just a process that, like, we got to hire an Xbox guy that's going to just, like, that's their job, is to make sure that these patches are getting, submitted and approved.
Well, now even more than ever, it's a money problem, right? Because like now it's just literally they can, once the infrastructure is there, mainly it's just about upkeeping it and making sure that like all the QA tests and everything for patches are done in advance and blah blah blah.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know the exact rules behind all of this because again, I'm just me. But I know that Warframe, at least on PlayStation, can skip the patch check nowadays. For the first few years they had to submit, and then Sony would check, and then it would come back. But now they can have Sony upload the patch, then check it, and then if there's issues, they can roll back, I guess. But Warframe has a fast pass in the patch system, which, as consider the fact you don't need to log into 14 on PlayStation nowadays either. You can just update it from the main launcher. So that's why whenever the PC version of 14 goes down, like maintenance, you can actually download the update before the PC version sometimes on PlayStation. Because again, it's through Sony servers instead of the Square Enix servers.
I think they plan on 14 is going to grow enough. They can just pay for the same level of staffing.
Yeah,
I just want to add on. My guess is they're probably at launch. It's probably going to have to go to Microsoft for check-in. But after the first few patches, they will probably go into the same system as Sony, where it'll become a lot easier for them to update. But Microsoft are probably just doing it for the first one or two.
We've clearly made sure all the, everything's smoothed out. That process is streamlined. And if there is a problem, we have a plan and a policy in place, ready to rock and roll. But yeah, I think as long as we don't see any Final Fantasy 14 drop any A/B patches again, I think that was the only real mistake that the one patch mistake they've ever made. But that was
they've got down their cadence. I feel like just as a slight anecdote about the importance of I feel like Xbox is I was just at the dentist yesterday, and not only had my dentist and the assistant heard of 14, but both were interested in playing, but were Xbox households. So there are people who it
for the longest time. That's I wouldn't say it's the most voluminous group. It's not like everybody's like, I love Final Fantasy and Xbox. That's the hardest thing to be as a fan of Xbox and Final Fantasy, but they do exist. It's it's like, oh, I also like Final Fantasy. And so I've talked to, actually, oddly enough, I run the biggest Final Fantasy fan group on Xbox as an app. And so it's like, yeah, we've all been like, it's finally happening. It's finally happening. Here we go. I think the only thing that would make it sweeter is if we finally also saw Final Fantasy 7R, because it's coming up on 2 years. And that's it never feels like it's a definite no, but I wish we would just get some direction.
I really feel like Crisis Core was like them testing the waters. And as it didn't really do that well on Xbox, maybe that's why they decided Crisis Core sold pretty poorly. But then again, this is unfair because Crisis Core is a spin-off on a mobile originally, on a PSP that then was remade. So I feel that's unfair, but come on, it's the game industry. Whenever they ever been on words.
I think that's a problem that Microsoft can solve with the check, though, because it's kind of like a chicken and egg. If you don't have Final Fantasy on your platform, and then you finally get not a main Final Fantasy, but a Final, and it's, it didn't sell well, therefore we're not, because everybody's already been trained that it's like, I can't play this game on this platform. I will play it on the platforms that I own or on PC or something like that. So I think it's like you just open Microsoft, you're big enough, just open your checkbook, pay whatever that. It's you didn't sell 300,000 copies. We'll cover the difference. We'll guarantee that this many units will move, so it's worth your time. And if not, we'll just cover the difference or something like that.
Speaking of selling, though, do we want to talk about when we might think pre-orders might pop up? And,
I'd love to get that.
So you guys mentioned a couple of things. So first of all, you mentioned A and B patches, hopefully are a thing of the past. I will note that off the top of my head, I think Shadowbringers is the only expansion that did not have an A patch somewhere in it. So I don't think it's a thing of the past because all of the other expansions have had.
I didn't realize Stormblood had one.
Yeah, Stormblood had at launch, they had one.
Oh, okay, that's why.
Yep. They had a 4.05 or 4.06A.
Okay.
That was because of all the server issues, right? I think.
Yeah, Robonic Stream, I'm assuming.
It's usually when they either want to roll something out. It's usually patch related these days. It's usually we've messed up. So the A's now are usually we've messed up. What's odd is that the one in Endwalker was them rebalancing PvP in 6.11a, I think, if I remember correctly. And it feels like if they just waited to 6.15, they may have been able to quality check and avoid some of the like black mage shenanigans that happened.
That was so fun though. Like as much as like I know people were frustrated, that was like, just like so fun.
Like,
dude, I was there. I didn't even realize that was an A patch.
May 24th and the 7th of June. Like maybe it would have given them the time to avoid that black mage shenanigans. But as you guys predict expansion dates, just to give you guys a little bit of context before you throw your guesses out there. Heaven's Word was 80 days after patch 2.55. Stormblood was 107 days after 3.55a. That was a two-parter. Shadowbringers was 136 days after 4.55. Keep in mind, I'm counting from early access back to the day that the date launched. And if there's ever a question in dates, I'm always picking the NA date just for consistency. So like that's a rule I made back when I made the spreadsheet. We'll always default to NA dates just because I'm always reading the NA press releases. And then we'll always default to the earliest date that had wide access to the patch. Because who's not going to have a pre-order in an MMO? Endwalker was all the way up to 192 days. Remember how upset everybody was with Endwalker being so late? So to put that in perspective, Dawn Trail, if it does not launch by June, it's already in like the 140, 150 day range. So we're already getting back to Endwalker level of frustration. So like my first prediction is that we are going to see some drama videos because people are going to get bored. They're going to get frustrated. Like that's just going to build up because there's not going to be anything else to talk about. So just for anybody that likes that sort of thing on Twitch and YouTube, get your popcorn ready because like people are slowly going to pull their hair out as this stretches on because there's not enough meat on the bone and we've all just been locked inside and we're going to stay in here for the next 150 days plus.
Go take care of the backlog. I promise you there are things in this game you don't think you are going to like that you actually might end up really enjoying. Go try some of this stuff out.
You were talking about having them high
or just like play something else for that time.
Well, I was trying to not say just take a break. I was trying to, avoid.
I just think, like, especially like from my personal experience, like this has been, I've really been enjoying like, oh yeah, get like what's going on with Final Fantasy now. It's just like
Yoshi P might be onto something.
Yeah,
By the way,
telling us to play this way, and I wasn't listening to him. Well, okay, I'm gonna follow his advice, and I'm like, all right, I think this is gonna be probably the healthiest way I've ever enjoyed Final Fantasy 14 here in this coming year. Go ahead, Chili.
By the way, you were talking about a solo Heaven High run and such. They've actually now added that as trophies on PlayStation. So if you want to go get those, you're gonna have to do it again.
Hell yeah!
So there you go.
That's cool.
So
all the more reasons.
Yeah, no.
I see some guesses in chat. Guessing in July. July's a safe bet. So the earliest date that I think it could be based on everything else is May 31st. I think this is wildly unlikely. That would still put us at 136 days, which is long. The latest I believe it could be based on everything else. And I believe they'd have to surprise us with additional content. So, now that we've gotten all the announcements, I think this was a guess from before the FanFests started, before the 3 FanFests, when there was still a chance that maybe FanFest would announce a 6.6 or like a 2-parter 6.55 or something like that, is I had predicted if they had additional content to roll out after 6.55, which I don't think we do, then that would allow them to wait as long as July 26th, which is 192 days from 6.55. And so now that ship has sailed,
that would be early access. You'd be looking at July 30th, right?
And so I don't think I think that's too far. So I think we are somewhere more likely in June or early July.
And they're setting themselves up for failure in that regard if they go that late because they want to be in summer. Like that's been their goal. And they're going to it's going to start slipping again when they get to 8.0, right? So I feel like that it's got to be that their internal goal is not, obviously they want it as early as they can go, but I would think like June or, early July would have to be
if that's their goal. 2.0 was August. Let's ignore that. But 3.0 was June. 4.0 was June. 5.0 was June.
So they did see, okay.
So like June was the historic goal. It's the safe bet. Just based on history is that they're trying to get it ready as fast as possible. May, kind of begins the summer months. It's never ready for May, so it's launching in June.
I just
well, no,
So
June.
I think
June
fits
actually
really well.
officially June is the start of summer.
Well, it depends. It depends on if you're talking about like solstices and equinoxes versus if you're talking about like what
calendar
people,
year schedule.
Yeah,
school.
like it gets very variable.
Yeah, school gets out and it's over 100 degrees here in Texas. So you have a tough time convincing me it's not summer.
Well, but officially June is summer.
Okay.
The start.
So, but essentially, if we're going to go, both work.
Whether,
like if we're going to say I'd say the earliest we'd see the game is going to be June 21st as part of early access, therefore launching on June 25th. But I am inclined, especially to go with what Matt's saying in chat, like July 9th, like honestly would be ideal that you get the 4th of July weekend for early access. So you might get a day off or two and be able to kind of just play. Because I love whenever holidays are around and games are out.
100 and so that would mean that I would count it as the 5th, that Friday.
Yeah, the 5th, that Friday. What's the count?
71 days.
But that's less than Endwalker though, right?
Well, but also Endwalker was during COVID.
What was Endwalker?
So Endwalker was it is 192. But it was a 2-week delay.
Yeah.
So if you look at Endwalker's, like originally Endwalker was not supposed to be in 2021.
Yeah,
it missed the mark.
Yeah, but it is worth pointing out that we're not entirely contentless in that. Well, if anyone is expecting them to drop a surprise 6.6 or anything, I must disabuse you of that notion right now. There are not going to be surprises. The things that they have announced are the things we're going to
get a 16 collab. That'll be the big thing.
Yeah,
and that'll take you 20 minutes.
That's in April, right?
Those have historically those crossover events have been 20 minutes and not really worth doing more than once.
I like how the guy who's not playing the game right now is pumps out the date, and two people are like, I don't know.
Well, I know it's coming. I'm trying not to think about it because I want to do it real bad.
Yeah,
so not knowing the date helps me not get tunnels.
I said yes.
Moogle Tombstone event.
That's why I said two guys, because I was like,
okay.
We'll get a Moogle Tombstone event leading to the expansion, and those run a lot longer than the historic. So the Moogle Tombstone events that go prior to a patch are always 29 days prior to a patch. And if it's not 29 days, that's how you know there was an internal delay, because it's suddenly 29 plus 14 and you're like, oh, and so it's just an unannounced delay. But they're always 29 days. So Moogle Tombstone event will help us better predict the expansion. So the more information we get, the better these predictions are going to get.
Mm-hmm.
But pre-order, I think, will be announced at the next. I think they will talk about pre-order at the next live letter, and pre-order will go live at the live letter after that.
So when's the next live letter?
I don't know,
because I just don't see them opening up pre-orders when Xbox hasn't come out. So it's like I mean, once the Xbox beta's out, then it's like I think that's where you can open up pre-orders, because I mean, unless they're like Xbox is digital only and we're not even going to make a physical collector's edition for Xbox, it's just PlayStation or something like that.
It's not physical anymore anyway, the collector's edition, right? Because even if you buy a physical collector's edition, you get a digital code.
Well, you don't need a disc for Final Fantasy
stuff. You still get all the goodies.
So I think they'll still get a physical Xbox collector's edition, but it'll just be PlayStation, where you don't get a disc, you just get a digital code to redeem. So I was gonna say, it's not really So I might guess if we're going to talk about pre-orders, I feel like it's either going to be at the start of the beta that pre-orders might go live, or right after the beta ends. The pre-orders, which would be a bit late in my opinion, which would be March. Yeah. Right, mid-March will probably be when the beta ends, because it's probably going to be a couple of weeks.
So here's some poetic timing. So if we go kick it to late June for launch, then we end up with an April live letter 82. And which means that the live letter would be timed and announced right around the 16 crossover, give or take, because live letters prior to expansions are far from a perfect predictor. They're not consistent, because they're usually timing them with when's an ideal time for the game population, or do they want to time it with some other event?
PAX, PAX is usually in March, so we
as opposed
get one there.
To part 2 live letters are very, very predictable. They're standalone events, unless they're going to be at PAX a day or two before or a day or two after. They don't really move. And then that would put our final live letter of this expansion the last week of May. That seems a little late for pre-orders. So I think pre-orders are, if I had to guess, I'd say April. Does that seem too
wow?
soon?
Pre-orders.
That
seems late.
That seems late.
I mean, but that gives you potentially 3 months.
April 7th?
Near approach 2.5 to 3 months, depending on how late.
That's just what the spreadsheet spit out. And that seems late as I say it out loud. But there have been times where I've corrected the spreadsheet because I felt it was wrong. And then the spreadsheet turned out to
right.
be smarter than me. So,
trust the numbers. I mean,
the spreadsheet says like.
The only reason why I say I feel like it should be closer to the only reason why I feel like I say it should be closer to the Final Fantasy 14 Xbox beta is because otherwise, because you have to, if you want to play it on a different console, you have to repurchase the game. Your license is not carried over from PlayStation and PC. If you want PlayStation, you need that. If you want PC, you need that. So they should really open up the pre-orders for Dawn Trail around the same time as the beta, because that way then they can release it as a complete edition. So the Xbox players can then pre-order the Dawn Trail edition and then download everything up to Dawn Trail, rather than having them buy Endwalker and then buy Dawn Trail afterwards.
And then like on that same note is that typically, let's say they get the collector's edition, like those actually usually come with day one goodies when you pre-order as a part of that, like a little minion or something like that. So it could be like
the leveling earring.
Exactly. Yeah, the leveling earring and more. So it's like all of a sudden it's like, all right, beta's over.
First half of June then. Like I just can't imagine that they make us pre-order and then wait that long.
Unless the pre-order comes
if the pre-order is based on the Xbox release and based on other Square Enix properties, so it kicks into March, then I think it's no longer a July launch. I think it's first half of June.
I don't think anybody would be sad about that.
The other expansions were June, other than Endwalker, like you said, and that they said they wanted to get back to summer, and if they wanted to get back to their old release dates, so it would track. That would be
closest early access date that, like based on previous ones, would be like June 16th is really nice and safe, and that puts pre-order like the very last week of March, and then we get one more final live letter second half of May, and they're just going over, just reminding us,
could that be why that Savage is delayed? Because remember, Savage is now going to be a month.
Savage is really late.
Savage is. I feel like Savage is delayed mainly because of the based on what they said, because of the player experience, where like not having to meet.
Yeah,
better be right.
Is that really the word? Really?
I will say, as someone who does it, it's so much.
Because if you deliver it and it's always Savage is always 2 weeks after expansion launch, but they're saying the raid. It's always 2 weeks, then 2 weeks. 2 weeks to normal, 2 weeks to Savage. So you get a month to prep for Savage. But now it's going to be a month to normal, and we have to assume another 2 weeks to Savage, probably 2, for gearing, because the beginning of the expansion is the hardest gear upswing for players, because we've all just hit the reset button. So you've got 4 weeks plus 2, so you've got 6 weeks after launch. So that kicks our next raid out to like July. End of July.
Yeah, it'd be really rough to
time.
See well,
our last raid dropped in May. August. So like, I mean, we're looking at over a year. It is most likely over a year from raid progression to raid progression.
In theory, shouldn't. Well, I see what you're saying. Because
I'm not a Savage progression raider, so it doesn't impact me. But the empathy part of me knows that if that's what you prepare for and that's what you're excited for, why would you give somebody 12 months of subscription without?
Yeah,
like
it's why I know it sounds really stupid and really dumb, but because there were so many really big boss fights in Final Fantasy 16, and a lot of the models from the Final Fantasy 16 stuff is like kind of Final Fantasy 14-esque. I was hoping that maybe they would do a bonus raid tier as part of the collab, where they've just ripped all the models from 16.
So
if there was ever going to be a 6.6, if there was ever going to be a 0.6 patch, this was the expansion.
Yeah,
like this put the nail in that rumor forever. I cannot imagine them ever doing a 0.6 if they didn't do it now.
Couldn't you?
Fresh Saga, Final Fantasy 16 crossover, so we could have had a standalone raid tier. Like it was primed for, or at least had some bonus extreme fight that lingered, like our lovely Dragon Boy. Like this was the expansion to get a bonus patch that you wouldn't do moving forward. So if not now, why ever go beyond a 0.55?
So just to address Chili's point real quick, the problem is that literally the polygonal count of like one of those models alone would cause like memory issues. Like, so if you've ever looked at Gruda from 15 or the Noctis from 15, they're all like remodeled and versions in the 14 engine. Some of them get really close. Like some of the near stuff looks great, but it's not, you can't just pull it straight out and put it in the game without issues. Not to mention, like, you would probably still have to re-rig it completely. Like the rigging would have to be redone.
That's
anyways. Fair. I wish it was that simple, because that would be great. That would be awesome if they could just. What's interesting is they did do that to an extent with some like 11 and even some like I think some 13 things where they basically took like low. In the 11's case, I think they just retextured them. But like that, like the goblins, some of the like Trents. There's like a version of those from 11. There's a bunch of 11 enemies that are just straight up in 14 in 2.0.
And we're gonna get more in Dawn Trail. Yay!
yeah, exciting. But yeah, no, it's really it's going to be an interesting time to see whether or not people are going to get salty because of the wait, or if this is how this is going to be. Because when it came to Shadowbringers, right, we had or like the Shadowbringers, we had the WoW Exodus, and it was COVID. It was a weird time, and this is going to be the first one where things are back to normal.
Yeah.
And we have that much time. And so are we going to have the same thing that we usually get, which is people start doing weird stuff like what sort of insane stuff can you do with Blue Mage? What sort of, can you create a like Pictomancer glam contest where you can only use abilities and emotes that are Pictoglam, but like Pictomancer, but while trying to clear Deliberate Regine Savage, like stuff like that. Just weird things. It'll be an interesting time for sure.
Yeah, I'm not too worried because I think we've seen most of the there'll be drama posts, I think, but I think I would look back to the fall. That's where all of a sudden it was like the thing that I was just both amused by was how many people were coming out and going like, yeah, Brian was saying all this stuff a year ago and now everybody's caught up. Like, it's okay. Like, yeah, that's fair. Now, like if they're all like burned out, I'm kind of just like, oh yeah, now I'm hungry, boys. Let's go. Let's get this. Like I got to lose the weight, but I still, you
can get rested.
Yeah, so that's where it's
Ryan had his 14 fast.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's like it's been.
I'll say it again.
Good best.
Yoshi P is onto something, right? With like I know everyone doesn't like to hear it, but the taking a break turns out it actually tends to work.
I think it's an interesting discussion topic specifically on that because like I talked to a lot of the guys. Like I think what we started off with was like a forever game, or that just as a label, not that it means that this is the one thing I'll play forever and never stop, but it's like that's the kind of the label, right? And then we grew up and we got busy, and all of a sudden we became nomads. And so it's like the MMO nomad, just kind of jumping around looking for something, hungry for that. Like I want that game that it's like I'm gonna put. Like I did back when I had all kinds of free time and no responsibilities. And it's like, the reality is like, I appreciate a game that lets me enjoy it. And also I'm not punished because I had another baby or something like that. Not me personally, but I was involved.
Really?
You say that.
Surprised if you had.
I got big news that we're breaking here today. Anyway, now, still at a rock solid 6, so we're rocking and rolling, ready to raid. Actually, that's the thing I'm really looking forward to.
7th child 7.0.
No, baby, I'm sorry. The internet's decided. Woo, that would be nuts. Anyway, yeah. So it's like,
please no, because then 7.0 would have to be delayed until end of the year.
Yeah,
so don't do that.
We'd have to like target it. It's like, and then another channel was born. I think for the pre-orders, I think it obviously is going to be married to a live letter. They're going to sit down and talk about it and show it. Right. I don't know and they'll have
They're
it in
the two
person.
hardest live letters to predict, though.
Right. And so when it's all said and done, like I'm assuming PAX West is coming back, and that is in or has been historically in March. And so that could be a really good time to have both that press, and who knows if if they're targeting June, that could be the start of some level of media tour. Because if you're already coming over here, might as well what do we double up on rather than sitting, say, hey, we're gonna hit PAX West.
Media tour is the last live letter, so it's a month out. So the media tour takes place a couple weeks before that, 4 to 6 weeks out, and then they have a live letter basically timed with the embargo.
Yeah.
And then you get to watch. And that opens with some presentation or whatever that is the same presentation that was given to people prior to getting access.
Yeah.
And then they get access to the game, and all of those videos have gone live, and there's a giant dump. Historically, when they were in person, limited access to content creators because there's a limited number of seats in the room. They're a physical location with physical PCs. So they have to choose, because it isn't just about satisfying the existing base. You guys are already pre-ordered. It's also about growing the game. So they do want non-traditional Final Fantasy XIV coverage in there from the big magazines, the big publishers, and even players who maybe are big in other MMO spaces. They get invited, and there's always a point of drama about that. Like, why do they get early access to our game? And it's because they're going to take it back to a community full of people who maybe have thought about playing. The goal is to sell more games. The goal of the media tour is to sell more games. It happens to get us really good information.
I've been lucky that we've been invited to, well, I'm not going to say where, but we've been invited to most of them in the past. So we have, the Endwalk was the only one I was able to attend because we normally get invited to the NA one, which means then I don't get to attend it. Someone else does. Sure. So,
bummer.
Now,
I dream
the last one was digital,
invited, but I doubt
changed
that
the game. I hope and pray for a digital media tour again.
Well, if nothing else, a hybrid, right? Like if they do a hybrid, that would be really cool. Because, but then like
really
with every
hard to
media tour,
really expensive.
Yeah.
The reason I hope for digital is it over doubled its size. When the in-person ones, everybody got an interview slot. You might share that interview slot with another person, so there'd be two people asking every other question. But so when Brian and I went in person to an undisclosed location, we were sitting next to a representative on behalf of Reddit, who at the time strongly disliked a tiny little channel that was growing called Work to Game. And so they were thrilled to share every other question with us, I'm sure. I adore the Reddit community. I think maybe they've come around on us, but it was at the moment I could see in the face of the person that it was like, pick anybody else. And they were so much more organized, and they had their questions already typed up in Japanese, and we were like, I don't know, I wrote some stuff on a napkin. So there was no plan. The second media tour we were invited to was Endwalker. It was digital. What I liked about it was way more people included. It was much broader, larger creators, smaller creators, people from inside of the game, people from outside of the game. That did mean there were actually more interviews given out, but the total media tour size grew so much that there were a lot of people like us that did not get an interview slot. I think that's very valid. Yoshi actually gave more interviews. We got more questions. I built a big spreadsheet where I categorized all the questions I could find. It was way more questions. And it came across a much broader set of topics because some of the interviews were given to people who haven't played the game. So some of those questions felt a little bit like, we already know the answer, because I know I felt that way. But some of them got answers that I didn't expect because they asked a question that we have heard asked 20 times and it's always been answered the same way. And Yoshi said, well, we've actually been working on that. And here's some things that changed. And so I think that it resulted in a really good media tour. Don't get me wrong. Selfishly, as a person who got to go to an in-person one, if I was ever invited to a media tour again, in-person was so cool. Sitting on a couch across from Yoshi P is
the dream.
That's a life-changing experience. And if I never get invited to another media tour, that is something I will always appreciate. Having a picture with Brian and Yoshi P is amazing.
I'm not gonna lie. When I started our channel, that was
for
like
the community.
That is the goal.
Yeah.
For the community, I think that the digital one just offered more pros than cons.
My goal, because I see that photo of me, is to do another one once I've completed this journey, so that I have like where it started and how it's going, kind of that mindset with Yoshi P. Because I don't know if I've ever shared this like on the show with you guys, but it's like I remember when they announced Heaven's Word, and I was like, all right, I'm gonna lose 30 pounds by the time Heaven's Word releases, and I didn't. And then so I kept setting all these goals prior to an expansion drop and never achieving it. And it's like, I think that for me will be a very cathartic experience to sit here and say, like, this was at me at the heaviest, and here I am, whatever this time frame looks like. I think that's going to be something, and I'd love to have that picture with Yoshi P for that with that as a before and ending. What you could say is a new story, new Brian. Yeah, exactly. New man, new
Brian's
year, new
Dawn
me.
Trail.
Brian's Dawn Trail. Yeah, exactly. New day has dawned. In that regards. Now, Izzy brings up a really good point. It says that there were leaks from the digital one too, so they'll probably make adjustments to the media tour to help prevent. And we are, especially when it comes to this, like we are signing an agreement. Like I am not. This is the biggest frustration because the best gift we can give the devs is that surprise, and
that's
that
all they
shock.
ask for.
That's all they ask for. And
they just want us to not say anything.
We didn't have to pay them to go. When we went in person, we did pay our own way, but there was no exchange of money. We paid to be there. We paid for our flight and we, handled lodging and stuff. They fed us a meal. And that was the only exchange of anything monetary. Like, we got some swag. I got a Chocobo alarm clock here. And that's about it. But it's, and then at Endwalker, they mailed us a box of stuff, which I mailed some of my stuff. I gave some of my stuff away. So like I mailed the notebook to Pyro back when he was like taking notes and he's like, I don't have enough notebooks. I was watching a stream. I was like, well, I can fix this.
And Endwalker Moon Orb, I always see in Brian's background.
That.
Like I'm so jealous.
It's over here.
That.
I'm not giving it
right
away.
here.
I have mine
right next to,
yeah.
It's also right next to my Super NES copy of Final Fantasy 2, aka 4. But that says 2 on it, baby.
So I do worry about using it. I don't turn it on because they sent me a US one. So even though I have a converter from UK to US, I don't want to use just in case.
All right. But there are leaks. There are always leaks. Sometimes they've been rumored to be from more the employee end of things. Sometimes they've been rumored to be from more of the consumer end of things. There have been leaks in the past before Brian and I've even gotten to go because there's been people that get to go before us. And so like the leaks are already out there. So like I'm trying not to consume the leaks because I get to still be surprised. And so, but it is the kindest thing we can give them. It's all they ask in response. We just want everybody to be surprised on the same day. And that's something we want to consume and we want to enjoy. And that's all they ask for. So it feels like a really small set of instructions to follow, but there will be somebody that doesn't follow it. I hope they do things like digitally stamp and all that stuff, which they've been rumored to do in the past. Square Enix doesn't historically make it very public when they punish somebody, but that person most likely wouldn't be invited again. And then if there was some sort of legal action taken against them, it would be very private.
If you're going to violate that trust, like, I'm sorry, like that's like, I do think there, in life, there should always be a pathway of redemption, but that doesn't mean that pathway needs to be cheap and easy. And it's like, I don't know, man. Like, I don't get it. Now I've had people leak stuff to me, like privately, which is always, like, all right, you can tell me, I'm not going to, but it's like, all right.
I don't know.
And in that vein, I was talking to another content creator who was asking me out of curiosity why news around data mining in 14 tends to not be covered very, very much. Like you can find it, don't get me wrong, but it's not compared to like other MMOs. It's not. And what I tried to kind of explain is that the devs have repeatedly tried to explain how much surprise is and how much they value that like surprise and delight and all of that.
And they ask for so little. And
it's so little to ask for, and that the community tends to, regard that as mattering. So that's my thought is that's a big reason as to why it's not as prevalent.
I don't know. It's the one thing, and they very carefully put things in the media tour to know that they're not spoilery as well. So the NPCs will have generic names. We're not going to have access to all zones. We're not going to have access to all gear. Like they've taken a slice and they have very carefully put boundaries around it. And I think there was one of the things I liked about the Endwalker one is because it was so many more people, it shocked me how many different interesting ways there were to measure it. I know us and another content creator were measuring how much difference the new speed boost thing was going to give. And so we were running up a beach and had somebody like measuring it to see who got to go further, and we were dropping and picking up parties so that we could see what the buff did. And there were people looking at all sorts of lore ramifications of anything they did let us see, and all sorts of speculation there. And so like, I really liked a lot of the coverage that came out of it last time, and all Square Enix has asked in trade is that it comes out on a specific day.
Yeah. The other, crikey me, I lost what I was going to say in particular. Dang, I had it, but
if it comes back, no worries.
Yeah.
They do ask to see our videos first because there's some things like if you find like a bug in their software, Like if the demo version like creates some weird glitch, they don't want you broadcasting that because odds are it's something that's just in the technical slice anyway. And the goal of the event is to focus on the positives. But as far as the message goes, they've never said anything about any complaint I've had about the game, any concern I've had about the game. They've just said like, hey, if you find something that's like glitching, don't show that. And that's that. So that is something they ask for. But I think that's it. They don't care at all about the content of your message. They just want to know that like what you're showing is intended gameplay.
Yeah. Infinite's comment actually brought it back to mind, which is that in that same vein, it should be marked that when they show something like Solution 9 this early, that's not the big reveal for the expansion. Like they
right.
like that's just one of the like smaller ones, right? In Shadowbringers, it was the revelation of like ending one of the trailers with the Hydaelyn, the Oldest and Eldest of Primals, or Endwalker showing off Mari Lamentorum or whatever. It's
Endwalker didn't it? They teased Elpis, but they didn't name it.
Yeah, but they didn't name it, so it looked like it was like
a
treasure map. Like we couldn't tell what it was.
Yep,
it looked like like there was art. Like in hindsight, we look back and it was right in our face.
Like, oh yeah,
but
clearly
we didn't know what we were.
Well,
seeing.
and you see the dead ends too in the gameplay trailer. Like you can see the beginning of the dead ends. So
they're only spoilery once you know they're spoilery.
Right. The context matters.
If a new player is watching a trailer and Twitch chat or whatever goes, "Oh, that's a spoiler for this," the chat was the spoiler, not the video, because they didn't know what they were seeing. And actually, it's what makes it fun for those of us watching. When you go back and you start the game and Alice is sitting next to you in a wagon, like they're just messing with you. It doesn't ruin anything. You just think it's some Elizin or whatever.
Yeah.
You're like, oh, there's just a person next to me. And so like it doesn't mean anything until you have the context. So they're super good about like, I told you what would happen. You just didn't know how to listen.
And the thing is that they're walking a tight, a razor's edge here where you do still want to show things that excite people, right? Seeing Solution 9 this early has my brain racing, wondering, I'm excited, so it is like this, like how much do you show versus how much? And I would just say that of all the people I can think of, all the companies I can think of, they've done a really solid job for a long period of time at balancing that.
I agree with Infinite. It's super cool that they're not just like, and the surprise was something you didn't know because we didn't tell you. It's like, no, like the surprise feels really genuine because you're like, oh, I should have known. Like the t-shirts, right? Yoshi P's t-shirts. Like in hindsight, it's so easy that I love that they like throw it right in our face. And then what that does, that causes us to like scour over everything and go, is that the surprise? Is that the surprise? Is that the surprise? Because
I'm so happy it ended up being Pictomancer. I am so happy.
I'm so glad it was Pictomancer. I was wrong. I didn't think it would be Pictomancer. I thought Pictomancer was high copium, but I was totally wrong, and I'm so glad.
No, I was my copium is Time Mage and will continue to be Time Mage every single time. But then I was like, Pictomancer is like, feels like it's so obvious. Like and it's cool because it's also such a unique job in the history and lore of Final Fantasy, because Final Fantasy VI is such a great game. Like it's so good. And just like hopefully maybe people who haven't checked it out can go check it out via the Pixel remasters. That's actually something I've been doing. I have the Pixel remasters. I've got them on Switch and on PlayStation, and if they come to Xbox, I'll get them there too. I have a problem. Somebody.
One day I'll play through 6.
Stop you. Yeah, totally. As someone who just recently replayed through them, I have to say it is really, really worth it. I will say my appreciation for 5 grew immensely playing it 20 years later.
See, I've already experienced a moment in Final Fantasy IV where I was actually choked up a little bit because as a parent and an adult, like there was the conversation between Cain, like talking about why Cain followed in his father's footsteps. I was like, and I was like, oh. And then I was like, as a kid, I'm like, all right, just kind of playing the game. And I think I remember the story. So it's going to be fun to kind of rediscover these stories, but having a massively different perspective on life.
Coming back to a place at a different point in your life. I'm just saying it's a helpful thing.
Every 5 years, I notice there's like just a little bit of resistance pulled off of the waterworks. Like I just cry that much easier. So like every birthday, I just cry a little bit easier. It's getting to the point where sometimes like a commercial is long enough to get me. Like I'm like that 45-second story arc just totally connected. I'm like, I'm weak.
Well,
I love it.
Guys, this has been a blast. We're at our hour time. So for those of you who are watching or new, we try to keep these around an hour. We feel like that just seems to be a much more easily, enjoyable chunk of time, especially we're all busy, with life and things like that. But our goal for 2024 is to do more of this. And so if you guys like this on Friday at this time, we hope that we can be your, Final Fantasy Square Enix RPG nerding out podcast for the Fridays, whether you want to join in for the live show or if you want to check this out as the VOD. And if you are watching this as a VOD, if you had a good time, please hit that like button and sound off in the comments. YouTube really likes that. And as a reminder, I'm going to try to make sure that all of our podcasts are chaptered out so you can easily jump back into the conversation that we have that are very organic. But that's these show plugs. I want to go around the horn. Let's start with Chili. Where can people find you? What you got for us?
You can find me over Mooglegram Radio on twitch.tv/Mooglegram Radio. We do a podcast every 2 weeks, kind of based on Final Fantasy, if we stay on topic, but probably not. So mostly Final Fantasy and Final Fantasy 14 related. Though, of course, with the period that's happening soon, it's going to be interesting to see how we're going to cover anything between now and when Dawn Trail comes out. Please look forward to it.
It'll be very creative, I'm sure. You come up with something cool.
I stream Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. My co-host streams Saturday, Sunday, Monday. So yeah, thank you.
Let's go with you, Elio.
Yeah, so you can find us over at the Orzian Archives on YouTube. That's mainly the big thing that we have. We have a sister channel, Final Fantasy 14 Archive. If you want to check out, basically, our Ray, our mod, goes through and collects all of footage of things that you can only do one time. So like tribal quests, a lot of those cutscenes, you can't review them, and makes these lovely little bite-sized videos that are easy to digest in case you missed it or just don't want to do tribe quests for some reason.
Chris?
Guys, I'm right here. I'm working on I'm trying to get things lined up so I can take on some bigger projects come Dawn Trail. One of the big steps of that is reorganizing my office and structuring it so I can take on some cooler filming things. And so I've done the most destructive portion of that. And so hopefully each Friday you can feel this just get a little better. As I slowly do this, I can tell you, right now, it's hard to get out of this chair because I moved so much stuff this week that my back hurts. As the other sign of getting older, that my whole back is on fire. Probably because I lifted with just my back in a jerking, twisting motion, taking my legs totally out of the equation. I felt it the moment it happened. The moment I knew it was not like you lifted too many things over the course of a day. There was one moment that it was like, I have just experienced serious regret.
Why didn't I engage my core?
And I'm very much excited. You've also been posting some of your old VODed playthroughs over on Gaming Lore Kinda. So I've been seeing those pop up into my feed. So I'm happy to see that those are rolling out to people. For me, you can find me on Ginger Prime and all the subsequent channels. The easiest way, if you guys are enjoying this, check the links in the description for Chili, for Elio, for Gaming Kinda, and for Ginger Prime. So we got lots of stuff for you, and thank you guys so much for taking time out of your day to talk to us about this release date. We'll be back next week, so if you have topic suggestions that you want, put them in the comments, hit us up on Discord, which is the top link if you're not a part of that, or we'll just talk about what's going on in gaming and so much more. So there was a couple of questions as we wrap up. Are you going to start streaming more for Dawn Trail, Chris?
Yes.
Woo.
Yes.
And then this is kind of a good follow-up because L. Draken was asking, hey, does Chris still stream daily?
I do not. In June 20th, I got offered a job that I wasn't looking for to be kind of a manager over some stuff from a previous life. And I said, well, it would have to be way too good of an opportunity to pass up. And then excitingly, it was. So I'm pursuing that right now, and I will tell you, I miss content creation. I miss you guys a lot, often, and I have financial goals, kind of like Brian's weight loss goals on when I can do more content creation. But there is something really nice about the paychecks are incredibly steady. They're helping me take care of things when my back finally is just too old and is permanently damaged from doing something stupid. It would be nice to have a sort of retirement in place. And YouTube just doesn't, There's no 401k match in content creation. So getting that portion kind of secured, and then kind of at these milestones, kind of like Brian's weight, coming back into content creation, knowing that some of my long-term finances is not like, well, I'll deal with that later. It's like, no, that's now
that needs to
done.
be addressed today.
Is complete. So if I'm ever full-time again, just know that it's because I believe I'm done with the accrual phase. They have all these different nicknames for different types of retirement. And
Fire?
Yeah, fire. There's different takes on that. There's different phrasings on that. And one of them is based around the idea that you no longer need to be setting aside for retirement, that you can live on every dollar that comes in can be spent, but you do need dollars coming in. So it's like, I don't want to withdraw from anything, but I just need to make I can go exactly hand to mouth, as opposed to right now, like I still need to set aside for the future. So that's where I'm trying to get. I'm trying to get where I can live hand to mouth. And then I'm happy to do this.
And as the other half of Work to Game, am I going to be streaming Dawn Trail and streaming more? That's all based off of the weight. So I announced today, 60 pounds down. I'd like to pop another 60. I'm not going to lie, because again, below 210. But I set a 210 weight goal, which would put me in the right BMI. And that I think will help me be somebody who can game well into the future. So while like I've never really been worried about retirement, I have been worried about this. This has caused a lot of anxiety, and I was always frustrated as to why I couldn't lose weight. Like it never checked the box. There's no answer until we found my health issue that we were able to get corrected. And that's all in part of stepping away from Final Fantasy 14. I would not have found that health issue. I knew I had to get radically crazy and get to I was like, I go to the gym 6 days a week. Like I'm only gaining weight. What do I change? Wrong. And they're like, let's check your thyroid. Not it. So anyway, we've gone a little bit over. I do apologize to my crew here, and I do thank everybody for hanging out. Hopefully we'll see you guys back here same time next week. But until then, what's up?
No, I was just saying totally.
Oh, so, I heard toolets, and I was like, I gotta ask what toolets is.
Toolets! I got a shot in my mouth.
All right, bye everybody.
Bye.
Love you guys.